Hello, and welcome back to Oboe Speak. Today, I've got about a handful of cane here, and one of my fantastic students needs this cane gouged up, and I'm going to shape some of it. They'll shape a good portion of it as well, so they can start moving on to the next part of their process of learning how to make reeds. But I just want to process this up so that they can get a leg up on that. And the student took the tube cane that we start with, and then they cut out segments, which they measured up. You can see some of the pencil markings here. And then you get these pieces, which in general would make up, if you Frankensteined them back together, these probably aren't the right pieces, but you could probably reassemble a tube in there somewhere, somehow. I don't think the tube would be very happy about it, but it was probably just fine growing in the grass. So there's the amalgamation. Here's what it used to look like. Oh boy, this is a bit of a mess. You get the idea. It used to be whole. So we're going to take those pieces, and right now what I'm going to do is try to give you a little bit of a closer insight into just the tools in that process. So I'm going to take this cane here, and then the first thing we're going to do is cut it down to size. Each tube can be longer or shorter, and we want to get them to be just the right size for our gouging machine, which I'll show you later. So we're going to use a guillotine here, and you don't necessarily just want to do that randomly and say, oh, I guillotined it just right. You want to know what you're doing. So I'm just going to show you what I'm thinking about as I'm trying to prepare this. And my student put some numbers on here to identify a grade or something that they saw that they liked. They're going through this process of analysis, and so you see sometimes A-. So I'll write those on there as I go, and I'll try to show you with this light here what I'm seeing when we're looking through the cane. So I'm going to get this light set up in a second, but why don't we just start at it. So the thing I'll mention is this guillotine has a bed here, so when we place the piece of cane, we're going to open up the guillotine, poke it through, and wherever it rests on here is generally going to give us the right size. There's a little smaller line on here that I use to be, oh, you can kind of see it there. This slot, that just higher marking, that's a good mark where I have between here and here that I can cut this piece of cane off and still have enough material to be able to put the piece of cane in the gouger and let it do its thing. So, as exciting as it is, we're just going to process some cane. So let me set up this light here, because I want you to be able to see this. So this won't be as bright to you as it is to me. It's very bright to me. But when I look at a piece of cane, what we're trying to do is understand when it's growing in the wind. Ooh, it's growing. It's blowing in the wind. It's being warped and moved, and it's growing in a non up and down fashion. And so what we need to do is find if it's frowning, and you can kind of see how that light's poking through. If there were no light poking through, you could say it's either, let's see here. Well, we'll get one of these here. Here we go. Man, these pieces are a little rough here. Let's see. Ooh, they're all frowning today. So the idea is the cane in general either frowns, so like you see that light back there, that means the cane is bowing up like this. So when you tie your reed together, the tip of the reed will probably splay out. Let's see if I can find a piece. And sometimes, so if I roll this piece, you can see there's a little light over there, but in the center here, where I'm pushing down, there's a little light coming out. But in this piece in general, even though it's kind of twisted, you could say it's either flat or it's smiling. And if it's smiling, the hope would be, or if it's flat, that the reed is either staying, the tip of the reed is open like this, or the smiling means the cane will come together and close. So what we're talking about we're talking about the tip of a finished reed. You're thinking about how this piece of cane, will eventually be thinned out, folded over. Let me see if I have a bad piece of cane. I can just, well, you get the idea. Maybe I can do that another time. But if you folded this cane over, you essentially have a double reed. then we clip that reed open, and that's how the reed vibrates. And so we can imagine that when we look at a piece of cane on a flat surface, what the end result will be. We have to really consider the warp in the cane. I mean, look at this thing. Holy cow. You wouldn't want to slalom down that thing. Oh boy, you'd get sick. So that's one difficult consideration. But we're going to take a smaller segment. So this is a great example here. You can see the center of this piece of cane way up here. So that's not so bad, but it is pretty warped. Ugh, it makes me not so good for a nice reed. And then here, even though the cane goes up in the center and it opens, it goes back down there. So the segment of cane that would be vibrating, I would probably want right about in here. I want to get rid of this twist, which looks like right about there I can get rid of. And I want to get rid of this dip down so I have as even of a segment as possible. So with that in mind, I'm going to take that information and eyeball it here and put it in the guillotine. Oh, very forceful. And we'll just kind of guillotine it up until we got what we want. And all of a sudden, now our segment's a little smaller. We still have, well, we got a smile. We're smiling here, so it's going to be hopefully closing. And we can see here the right and left side are still up a little bit. And this side, right and left side are up a little bit. So in general, I mean, it's not a perfect piece of cane, but it's doing okay. I think I just took my number and I just lost it in the mix here, whatever that piece of cane was. It's a mystery now. So I'll have to let my student figure that one out. But we're trying to mitigate the negative qualities of this piece of cane. So the next thing would be for this piece to be pre-gouged, where we take this pre-gouger and we push it through. But before we do that, I want to just finish up this cane. So if you want to hang out for me with me, this is what we're going to do for the next like 10 minutes, but I'm going to go a little faster and just kind of show you what I'm doing here, and try to rapid fire so we don't spend all day here. So here we've got another bow up, and you can even see, oof, somebody took a chunk out of that cane. Somebody sat on that piece of cane when it was growing, and it got pushed around. But here the cane goes down, and over here we've got a kind of a knot in the cane. So I'm okay, oof, even though that warp is pretty rough. But as soon as we get that much out of it, I think we'll be okay. So this process is really one of the main reasons to answer the question of why make your own reeds, and it's to try to be able to, oop, I lost the marking on that one too. Oh boy, I'm going to look at the marking first this time. Let me get all the unmarked ones here first. So let's see. Oh, we got a 1. I'll remember that. Okay, here we go. Let me put a 1 in the center here so I don't forget. Otherwise, my poor student won't know what the heck they have. Okay, here we go. So, oh boy, look at that. Oh my gosh. We got a slalom course going on here. So here we have a much more closure on the side, much more bowing open. So later on, that will come into play on how we select the cane, but honestly, we need to get rid of this thing quite badly. Oh, there goes my 1. I'm ready this time, though. I'm going to clip that 1 right off. I knew it, though. So, okay, here we go. Let's check in on how things are going. Now, there's a lot of different things to factor in that people find important or look for when they're doing this. But my goal right now is just to follow a basic set of parameters and try to get these things in line. So this one was a 1. I'm going to put a number 1 on there so that get a grade. So this looks like a B minus. Oh, look at this. I got a B. I think I've been informed that this is where I'm supposed to cut it. I think I get this now. Let's see if I agree. This is quite a long piece here from a longer tube. And I would actually, my instinct is to get rid of this very long segment on the end here, because as it bows up, that seems to be a real problem area. But if we were to take more on this, well, as soon as that bowing gets up there, that's a little problematic as well. So I think I see why my student was arguing for that. I think I'll go with your marking. I see. Okay, that makes sense now. Now this is a B, so I'm going to go pretty much in line with that and remark that B in a second here. So here we go. Ooh. B. Good. Okay, let's keep going. Let's get this A cane over here. So if you have any questions or any of these are looking a little funny to you, you just go ahead and put it down in the comments there. I'll try to answer anything I can. Now this is a great example where this piece of cane is not gonna, I mean, it looks, it's got an A. I mean, that must be very good. But the end vibration of this reed tells me that when you tie it, it's probably going to splay out with that opening. And that's the best spot. I mean, we can't make a reed this, maybe for a piccolo oboe, you could make a reed that small. But this is one where you may just have to deal with the fact that this is not a prime piece of cane. Because honestly, I'd want to get rid of this kind of slight bowed area. And you can see even right here, this is that bowing. You can see the cane goes through and then bloop, kind of kicks up. So I'm going to get rid of that entire section. I just don't want that anywhere near the finished reed. And we still got our A there. I'll mark it here just in case. Okay, let's keep going. No marking on this one. Here we've got a little bit of stuff, but it's not too rough, so I'm not too worried about it. Normally, if you can feel the markings, that means it's going to really not help your sound or your vibration of the reed. Now here again, a pretty obvious one. We've got this big lift out here. That's just not going to do much good for you, so I'm just going to get rid of that completely. All right, making good progress here. So, hey, this one's a little thinner in the cut, and I'll show that to you guys sometime here. I haven't shown that on the series yet. So, oh boy, we got another one really way up on the outside there, and this one dips down a little bit. So I'm just going to try to take a little bit of one and a little bit of the other, and you can even see on this end, the cane is kind of tapering in ever so slightly, kind of a growth pattern you can kind of see. And that growth pattern is pretty rough, so I'll take a little bit more off there. Okay, let's keep going. This one's an A with a minus on it, or a cutting area. Let's see. Oh boy, yeah. Ooh, boy, we don't want that anywhere near our final reed. Now this is interesting. Here, you'd say, the left side is higher, the right side's higher, it's a little centered. And but when you roll it this way, that stays. But then when you go this way, that center line all of a sudden lifts up. So this is one, when we go back to the pre-gouger, we'll make some different decisions. But for now, I'll agree. I'll just take that portion out. And we'll mark that A back on there. All right. Here's a 3. Now this one again, oh boy, that's an easy one to get rid of. Let's just put it on here and make sure there's nothing else to the story. So what we're kind of boiling down here is that there's the twist of the cane, and this isn't the twist, this is kind of how it's growing, the direction of it. So it's technically a straight piece of cane, it's just, the angling. So we've got the twist, we've got the angle, and then we have that information as it relates to the reed itself on the back side of it. We have a marking here. We've got a C on this one. Okay. And sometimes you've got to realize when you push somewhere on the cane, it's probably going to push down there as well. So if you need to get a little more information, you can kind of balance the whole piece of cane out and try to get a little bit more. What I'm looking at, if you're sitting there going, what is this guy looking at? When I hold this piece of metal up, I am looking between the piece of cane here, number 2, this piece of cane and this piece of metal right under there. If you were to see that light revealing itself, you can see that when that light shines through, that says the cane is bending up or down. Now if we push really hard, of course we can make that go away, but the idea is to be able to see the kind of gross motion or the larger motion of what's going on. So when I press in the cane, you can see that little sliver of light, and that tells me how the reed has grown, or what the shape of that edge is. So here we just have this large portion we've just got to get rid of here. Sometimes a piece of cane is so long, well, it's so long we forget. Oh boy, I keep on forgetting. I think that was a C. I'm going to put that marker on there, but boy, you're going to have to tell, boy, don't tell me in the comments either, boy. I think that was a number. Oh boy, well, this one's 2. I'll remember that one. I'm going to put it right here so I don't forget. I keep on talking to you guys and forgetting what I'm doing here. Okay, so I think both the right and left side, that looks pretty easy just to get rid of a little bit of that stuff. And I got my 2 on there. This one's a D. I better put that one right on there. And even just by looking at this one, you can see, oh my goodness, this is sometimes there's cane you just throw away because it's not going to go in there, but this is an easy one. To me, what's cool is if you want to imagine what it would happen if you were to take that material off. Well, you take that material off and you can see how the bend of the cane would work. Here you've got quite a bend, but if you bring it down that far, well, it's not great, but the center of the reed will be right here, so you might have some workable material. So, okay, what do we got here? This is the D. So make sure to mark that very clearly. Okay. We've got a 1 here. Let's take a look. Oh boy. Oh my, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, this one's smiling the Joker smile. This is a little bit too much. And then over here we've got some markings on the cane, some growing patterns that are a little rough that I'd probably try to get away from. So there's a lot going on here, but I'm going to try to get rid of the bend up and a little bit of the bend up there and see if we can center this one out. All right, we're almost there. This one's got no marking. Oh boy, same story on this one. They must come from the same plant region in that part of the field where they grew. So we're going to do pretty much the same thing of just trying to get those segments off. Here we got a 3. Oh boy, don't forget to mark that one. There we go. Okay. Hey, oh, well, it looks good here. This is a real flat one. If you're looking for flat pieces, that'd be good. And that side's very, oh boy, now we're frowning. Now we're frowning. So I'm going to get rid of that. I don't think you're going to make a very good reed out of whatever that is. So let's just kind of get rid of that and not worry about it too much. Okay, and we still got the number on there. Let's see what this one's got no number or marking. Okay, now this is quite a long piece as well, so we can kind of imagine different segments of it. And I'm kind of leaning towards this bottom side here of the cane, to my left side here at least. This side seems to be warping up or out and down. Ooh. So I'm going to get rid of that first and take just a little bit off on the other side. Here we have a C, which is of course for cookie. And I'm going to mark that C in there. So let's see. Oh boy, we don't want that at all. Let's just slide that over to the other side. Oh, that looks very good. Let's stick with that. And you know, a little coloring never hurt anybody on that piece of cane, so that's okay. So I'm going to clip that C off, but now I remembered it. So there we go. Okay. This is like me keeping score on the golf course. I forget. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, well, this piece of cane is a little bit too small, narrow-wise. So this is what we're normally going for on the right side here, but you can see, actually, I have a finished reed here. Let's see if this is wide enough. Nope. No, it is not. But just for kicks, we're gonna go through and gouge it. This is the height of efficiency. Whenever you're taking segments off a tube, you might say, well, there's 3 segments in a tube, and so I'm just gonna take 3 equal segments. Well, if there's one perfect piece of cane sitting in that tube, you cut that tube and you make one piece of cane. That's fine. But sometimes you go for 2, and so you've got a little left over. Well, sometimes that little left over is just not enough to be able to make a reed. Now I'm going to cut the right side of this one, take a little bit off. Let me get that little side there. Oh, excuse me, pardon me. Okay. Okay, so let's get back. I'm going to check my numbers. Oh, we got a B here. Okay, number B. Ooh, here we go. Ooh, it's oblong B. Okay, here we go. Oops, excuse me, pardon me. Okay. So this is another longer one. Oh boy, look at so we quite a few markings here. There's some nicer markings here. You see the lateral. There's just the slightest bit of lateral lines right in here. You can see it's trying to grow them in there. Sometimes it's very visible. Different people have different terminology for that, but I I'm going to go towards this very end chunk because there's a frown there, and then it just dives off into Nowheresville. So, and then the top here is crimped somehow. Oh boy. So I'm just going to take ever so slightly that much. I'm going to remember the B and get rid of that whole chunk. And draw my B back in there. I'll do double B's so I can get that in there. All right, just about 4 pieces left here. And I think the biggest thing I'm seeing with this batch of cane is that these pieces were quite warped. And so sometimes it's better to look for 1 unwarped piece out of a tube than 3 medium warped pieces. And since I haven't shown you that on the Oboe Speak channel here, I'll split up a piece of cane here at the end when I'm doing this, just so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. Now this is a really pretty heavily warped piece, but I think right over in here we can get a piece out of that. So I'm going to get rid of this end section. Oh, let me look for a marking. It's a 2. Okay. So there we go. We got a 2 more pieces, and then I'll split a piece of cane. Oh, we got a 1 and a minus, it looks like. So let's put that in here. Oh boy, look, ooh, let's just slide that to the left. Okay, there we go, that's better. And we got a little bit of a kick up on the right side, so get rid of that. Get rid of those. Very good. Now, I don't necessarily like what's going on over on that right side over there on the piece of cane here, so I'm going to get that little bit more extra off of it so that when I'm tying that cane, I know that's over there and I don't like it, but the end piece of cane is probably going to be more like this, and I'm a little bit more okay with that. It's obviously not ideal, but again, we're trying to mitigate disaster. And so if we can get at least a moderate outcome, that's pretty acceptable. Now this piece, I guess it's smiling or frowning in a very different way, but that is rough. That is a macaroni noodle if I ever saw one. So this is a D+. I'd give it a D+. Just in that curve on a piece of cane, rough. This is a Rolf the dog piece of cane, and you can see here huge smile, I guess you could say, but then we go to huge frown. Oh, deep breath. That cane needs a little attention, so we'll put it back in the pile. I think the grade on that one was correct. Now, what I was just talking about of splitting the cane, let's do that with this piece of cane. So this is a piece of the tube cane, and what we normally do is take a radius gauge like this and see, well, is it 10 millimeters? Is it 10.5? Well, it's definitely not 12 because it just rolls inside of there. And so we'd find which one of these does it generally fit in. Well, this one's definitely 10 millimeters. Here you can see just a little bit wider on that side, but as you roll it in, it nestles just fine. So we can then take a look at the piece of cane and determine, normally what you'd see is there's kind of a triangle pattern in the cane. Well, here's a good example of what you're looking for sometimes. You see how it goes up together and has a little notch? There's some different outlooks, but essentially what we can do is we can either use that as the center point of where you want the spine of the reed to be, and so you'd cut the cane to reveal that piece. Or you could say, I don't want that in the middle of the cane. I want that to be on the outer edge, so I'm going to go from here on the right, cut it, and then try to find something out there. So if you were trying to do that, you might say, well, I might naturally divide it something like this, and we would make cuts on each of those. Well, that's a very good idea, but we want to see what's actually happening when we do this with the reed. So get that bright light right in your eyes here. Sorry about that. But we're going to kind of twist around, and we're going to see. Now, notice we were frowning. Oh! Hey, there's that line. It kind of stopped over, and then we move again. And there's the next point. So we just traversed from here to here, and from there to there, it's pretty flat. So that might be, if you're looking for a flat side of the cane, that would be a good one. Here we're going to turn, a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a frown. Oh! So from here, I'm holding on left and right hand side here. Right about there is where it starts to frown. So this whole section here, I actually am going to change this marking. I'm going to kind of cut, I think maybe from here to here. So I might do, oh boy, let's try it. Let's really go wild here. Let's try a marker over here. I don't normally do that. So let's see here. Put it there, cut there, and maybe cut there. And let's see if there's anything left over there. This may be a two-piecer. Oh, you don't know. I dropped my marker cap there. Okay. So let's see if, oh, pardon me, if we're going to make sure that is, well, that's just pretty flat there. We're going over. Oh, it kind of opens up again. Let's see if this third opening, that's pretty flat there. Okay. That's where it starts to kick up again, right in there. So I'm not gonna cry any rivers about cutting a piece of cane right there, because we're definitely not going to use it. So I'm trying to look at the cane just as I showed you, to just try to evaluate it. And even if it's not perfect, you can at least say that you've got a system of something. So when you're having a consistent system, at least you're going to be consistently on or off, and then you can make a judgment from there of what you're going to do. Now there's a lot of different ways to split cane, but my favorite method is not using a plunger or some type of kind of heavy device, but I just use a razor blade and I split it. And I'm going to make two guiding motions here. And I take the piece off. Oh wow, you can see how flat that piece of cane is. So I'm just going to, basically I think this is just a sacrificial piece of cane. We're not even going to use that piece, but you can at least see it kind of, yeah, you can see that's really way too thin. But now I've got a mega chunk of cane to find one good piece out of. And gosh, if you get one great read out of a tube, that's a very good average. If you got two, wow, you're just doing great. If you get three, you might as well buy a lotto ticket. You know, you are ready to go. So I'll take these pieces and I will cut them down and put them in this pile. And now we're going to switch over to pre-gouging the handful of cane here and making sure that all the letters and numbers, as best I can remember them, go where they need to go. So here we go. I'm going to switch over a couple tools and get that ready for you. Okay. So we've got our split up cane. Now we got to gouge it. And so I'm going to put together the gouging machine I'm going to use today. This is an Inaletti gouging machine. And this is the main body. And there's only a few more components. I'll just take them out here. We've got the springs to keep everything taut, a little handle to keep things moving, clamp to keep it down, and a little micrometer so that we can see what the heck depth we're gouging the cane at. So I'm going to get ready here. I'm going to move you back a little bit because we got to set this thing up. So and, you'll kind of see how everything works here in a minute. But I'm just going to get the clamp in the correct position so I can actually get this thing on the table here and get it secured. Got to get the other way. There we go. I was wondering, I was thinking self, what are you doing? So, okay, now we got this clamped on the bottom of the table here. So we're going to tighten it in. The reason I was a little concerned there is we've got to be able to have a little way to be able to turn the mechanism on this thing. And so, as you'll see in a second, if the mechanism's over here, we aren't going to be turning very far. So I'm going to put this little handle here, and that way we can move our little machine back and forth. And we got our gouging machine to work. And essentially this gouger machine, you can see my note, thumbs up, subscribe. So don't forget to do that. But this little machine has essentially a fixed blade, oops, excuse me, inside of it right here, and it's going to gouge kind of like a plane would if you're a woodworker. you'd plane something. Well, instead of it being a flat plane, it actually has a curve to it, kind of like a curved chisel. Now, one of the things that you're going to see me do here is just set the machine up, and one of the things we have to do is make sure that we have a gauge on how thick we're actually going to make this. And I have to do a couple tests to make sure it works. But the first thing I'm going to do is dial in at 1 millimeter here, so that I could, because last time I used it, I left it at around 1 millimeter, and so we want to leave it right about that point. So that's what we're going to do next. Now, of course, I forgot one step, and that step is pre-gouging, because if you take these pieces of cane, which are delightful, and you were to gouge them right away, you'd be putting unneeded stress on the blade. And these gouging machines are not cheap, so you want to make sure you put as little stress as possible on them. One of the ways we do that is using a pre-gouger. I'm reaching over here so I can grab. The pre-gouger is going to take this piece of cane and cut it down into this piece of cane. You can see the one on the left is much thinner, and that means less duress on this machine. So what I'm actually going to do is we're going to pre-gouge first. So I'm going to move this happy little machine over a little bit, and we're going to go into pre-gouger mode for just a minute, and we'll knock that out pretty quickly here, hopefully. And normally I'd take a good amount of time to be able to make sure that is just right, but there's only so much time in a day, so we want to get this done here. So let's start moving through. So let's see here. If you hear in the background, we've got French horns accompanying this activity. So hopefully they're not playing anything too copyrightable, otherwise we'll get a copyright strike. So what's going to happen is this is a pre-gouger, and there's a lot of different styles of these, but essentially it's just a rounded bed with a set depth for the cutting device, and this one definitely needs to be resharpened. It's been at it for a while, but that's what we have working today. So essentially you place it on, and it comes out the end with a little less cane on it. Now, one of the things that would be easy to do is just put it all through the machine and be done with it. But if you do that, you're losing control of a really important step, and that is, here's a perfect example for this piece of cane. If we look dead on, it's smiling a little bit. Great, you can even see the little blue in the background without the light like we had before. You go this way, hey, it's smiling a little less, but it's almost towards flat. But if you go on this side, it's smiling almost, well, I would say a little too aggressively compared to the middle. So I'd rather try to get a more consistent edge. So instead of putting it in flat, I'm going to account for that information and roll it to the side, and that's going to take more cane off on this side and less cane off on that side. And so now we've taken this piece and we've tried to account for that information. And that's essentially what I'm going to do for each piece here. It's very similar to what we did before. Normally the guillotining and the pre-gouging process I do pretty closely together. But in this case, what I'm trying to do is just keep a uniform approach to everything as best I can. So let's see here. So we're just going to keep going through this. It's the exciting life of an oboist, I guess, is what you're really getting a taste of. Let's see here. This one looked like a D to me. I'll keep that on there. Let's just keep going. Oop, whoop, 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 excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me. Okay. Whoop, excuse me. Okay, here we go. All right, we're back at it. Okay. Now this is one you can see that huge aggressive kick up on the outer side there, but for now there's not much to be done about that. So equally bad on both sides on that one. Here's a 3, so we'll be fine because that 3 is on this side, so you don't have to worry about that one. It may be a little blurry for you, but you can still see under the piece of cane. And sometimes I'll see that smile and say, oh yeah, I really want that. And sometimes you'll see the other side is dipping in a non-pleasing way, so you've just got to kind of make an educated guess on what's going to make the best read in that circumstance. There are so many factors involved that you're just trying to make an educated guess on what's going to be best for the read you're making at that time. Even the coloring, even the way the cane just looks can just give you some more insight into what's going on. I've kind of lost you there. I'm going to move the camera a little bit so you can stay on track. And one thing you should be aware of is the ease of getting cut with this is immense. You know, I don't often talk about, like, you know, obviously I have just an open razor blade here. We've just got razor blades all over the place. That's just part of kind of the craft of reed making, just like a craftsman would have chisels around. Oboists normally have just razor blades around. But the cane itself, one slight touch of the hand, and it'll rip your hand open. So it's pretty unbelievable how quickly you could hurt yourself. Here's one of our tiny little pieces. That one's just humorous. That's a party that, whoop, it didn't even do anything. So that's more of the party favor gouged piece there. So let's just keep going here. I've got you pretty low over here, but I think you can. Now this is one. This piece is so close to being pre-gouged that really the only amount of cane I'm really going to be taking off is that top edge. I won't even get down to this bottom edge, so I'm not even going to worry about looking at that one. You can even see that it barely took anything off, so there's no reason in my mind to fiddle with it when it's already so far processed. And one of these days I'm going to have to resharpen this pre-gouger, just make my own out of even if you got a Stanley plane and sharpen it up. That's the way the old Groff planes were. It just is a bed that you plane over, and it's quite simple. Nothing too expensive. Something you could even make at home if you were handy. We're making pretty good progress here, so let's just keep rolling, and we can get on to the gouging. And honestly, every step's important, but there are some steps like this where, you know, you can take all the time in the world, but you don't have all the time in the world. So sometimes you've just got to make educated guesses and move relatively quickly so you can get back to living the rest of your life instead of spending all day making reeds. This one's pretty flat all around. I think this is one of the wide pieces that we selected. Let's see. Gosh, that is pretty flat across. I guess I'll go with this side over here. Ooh, our B came out right with it. Very good. And don't forget, subscribe. I keep seeing that little piece of tape. I guess I did a good job of reminding myself to tell you there. Okay. That one, again, just a little thin, so there's not much needed to be done. And you could argue, well, hey, why should we even do this step? And this is one of those steps where, like I said before, you don't have to do it, but gosh, not only is it going to save you time in the gouging process, but more importantly, it's going to save your gouger from a lot of wear and tear. And considering, you know, upwards of 1, 2, 2+ these gougers can cost, you want to make them last as long as humanly possible. Now this is one where it looks to me like this edge scoops up, so I'm going to try to go in and take that lower section there. If you disagree, well, you can get your own cane and you can make your own pre-gouging decisions. Okay. Because the goal is that each one of these becomes a serviceable reed. Obviously, some of these pieces of cane will make better reeds than others, and when you're trying to go for that big concert, or you're trying to make that just right reed, you're going to take that graded piece of cane and choose it first to make that reed. You don't want a grade F piece of cane and spend a bunch of time making a reed. It's just not efficient. It's not, and you'll know it's not going to create a good result. It'd be like if you're carving something out of marble and you see a big crack in it and you say, well, it's got a big crack, but I definitely make a good statue out of it. Well, no, the fault is the fault. So you you have to respect the process, I guess, and understanding that each thing affects the process. And because those markings are there, and because I'll keep seeing these processes come through, I'm not worried about adding anything when I later on when I'm tying a reed or when I'm about to shape and fold it, I'll make notes then again to indicate if a piece of cane is desirable or not. Because once you shape it, you're no longer going to be able to see how that cane rests on the piece of metal and what the shape of it is. So we're running out of pieces here. We're almost there. Just a few more. Hang in there with me. We're almost there. And this is a small batch of cane, honestly. So normally when I'm going to gouge up cane, I'll do quite a bit. But as you can see, one of my priorities is not just picking the best pieces, but also trying to mitigate as much negative outcomes, to mitigate as many negative outcomes as possible. And there you go. There's our pile of cane and our result. So I'm just going to clean this up. Let's see here. We're going some minutes there. So I'm going to put this away, and then I'll come back here and bring out the gouger. So here we go. Okay, we cleaned up a little bit. Now we can bring out our gouger again. So let's get it. Oh, you're missing the gouger. Okay, there we go. Let's get you in position here. Okay. So you can see the astounding oboe action. And I guess I don't have to remind you again about subscribing, so I'll move that for you because you already heard it a couple times. So I'm sure you don't need to hear it again. So here we go. So let's get this thing tightened down. And we're going to go through this process. So we don't want to take all day, but I do want to show you exactly what I do, why, and how, so that you get a sense of what the heck's going on here. The last thing I need to do is make sure this spring goes on the back of the machine so that there's some tension on the cane when we put it in the bed here. Now, this is where I'm going to make some markings on the cane to ensure that as I'm gouging, I'm being accurate in the process. Now, some of these processes are unique to the process I use when using this particular gouger. It is efficient and pretty quick. You don't have to soak your cane up necessarily. But one of the things is, because it's quick, it kind of kicks cane back sometimes. And so one of the things I do is I try to sort out how the cane, when you gouge it, if it takes a lot of cane out of one piece or doesn't take a lot of cane, what that may tell you is the back of the piece of cane may be actually really quite rounded. And what happens is the machine doesn't care. It just goes through. So that rounded piece of cane is going to be received by the blade and take more out of it. But if that piece of cane was flatter and then you gouged it through, the gouging blade is going to react to it differently, because if it's rounded up or flat, the blade's going to stay the same. So whatever the result is, we're going to measure the outcome, and I'm going to order them from thick to thin. So as I put it through the machine, I'll know if I want a specific end result. I'm going to account for how the machine deals with the natural process of cane. I can't change what the cane is, but I can account for its variance through my process. So if all those words made sense to you in a row, good for you. But essentially, I'm going to take the cane, put it through it, and then put it in order. And one of the things I have to do is use a dial micrometer here. I've got a trusty Mitoyo. Now this one's quite old, long in the tooth. And one of the things we always have to do is zero it out. So if my measurements start getting off, you're going to look up and say, oh boy, this guy really, he's off his rocker here. But because the way the base is set, and because the way the dial works, and even the nib on the tip of the micrometer here, each of those is going to play a part in how this micrometer functions. So you just want to, you can even see already it's moving around. So them's the brakes. So unless a machinist wants to send me a beautiful, fantastic, brand new, non-40 or 50-year-old micrometer and a base, I would love to have it. But for now, this will do just dandy. We can always adjust it. So the first thing I'm going to do is start putting the cane through the bed here. And thankfully, we really don't have to look anything up close. So I'm going to try to move this camera here, get you a wider angle of what's going on. Here we go. This isn't so bad. So, like I said, we're going to take this piece of cane, set it in the bed, and behind here is the blade, and I've locked the blade in place, and we're going to push this through. Now, just like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory or something, I guess you can't really see what's happening. I'm going to move this angle, and I'm going to do this again. Let me get you situated, because what came out of there is a piece of cane, and what curly-cued out of it is the remainder of the cane. So let me, actually, oh boy. Good thing you're on this mount here. Oh, hang out there. Hang on. Okay. I'm going to get you the bird's eye. Oh, I'm breaking the mount. I'm being very creative here. Okay, here we go. You may fall on the ground, so just buckle up. Buckle in here. Okay. All right. Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to back this up. Let's try this again. I want to show you exactly what's happening. So oh boy, you don't get sick now. Hold on there. I don't like roller coasters, so, you know, you're not moving, so don't move too much. But I'm going to put that piece of cane there. Aha! You can see the cane separating when the blade, let me see, what do I got here? Let me see, I'll give a pointer here. How about this? That's a little too big there. Let's go with this little oil dropper here. So there's the oil dropper. I'm going to point at it. Right here is a blade, and it's separating the cane from the bottom and this slimmer edge. So we're going to follow through, and now we have the chafe, that extra part, and we have the bottom. And like I said, the goal is to have this smoother, thinner piece. So we went from the one on the left to the one on the right. Now I've got to keep an eye out because, of course, we're going to take all those markings that are inside the cane and lose them, so I've got to keep track of that. I'm a little better at that when I'm not talking to you guys, but hey, the sacrifices I'll make to show you what's going on. So we're going to, you might say, well, we're done, right? We put it to that machine. Well, not right. One of the things that happens is you could immediately try to go for a finished product and get this just right thinness. But the consistency of the machine is, in this case, not going to always give you the result you want. And so what I do is I go through 3 stages, a large, the kind of growth stage, the medium, and then the finishing stage. And this first stage is also a stage where I'm going to try to make sure, is my micrometer on the machine down here correct? So I'm going to make sure I'm zeroed out on the mitoyo here. And I'm going to go in the middle and measure it up. And you can see I'm at 1, 1. So I've got, you see here, I'm over at 1.1. So we're all the way down, and we're going to go up to 1, and then 1.1. Oh, even higher. Oh, there we go. So about 1.1. So this micrometer is saying, hey, we're actually gouging at 1 millimeter. Well, la-di-da. That means we're 0.1 off. Let's see what the other piece of cane that we gouged is saying. This one's saying about 1.6, 1.7. 1.7, let's say. So what I would then do is say, here's 0.10, here's 0.7, and I'm going to start listing those out. Now, because I'm talking to you, I'm going to immediately forget this. So I'm going to actually write this out for now on these, just so you can see exactly how this is going to start playing out. And it'll make sense in a second why I'm putting all that work in, because in the end, what I want to make sure is that I have a consistent result. So let's try to get all of this in one shot here. How about that, huh? That way I don't have to move you around. You're probably already seasick over here. We're not even on the sea. So, okay, so I've got a B piece of cane here. It's already been pre-gouged. We've got all that stuff done. And I'm just going to go through here and keep... Actually, let me give you one more. Let's try. Okay, here we go. Hang in there. Hang on. Don't go nowhere. Okay. There. All right. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas here. So, okay, let's check that. Whoa. I think that was, let's see here. That was a B. Yep, you can see that was a B before. We have proof. We have evidence. There it is. So I'm going to write that back in there. I think I'll mark it on the top side because we're not going to change the top side anymore. So I'm going to put that B right over here just so I don't have to worry about it anymore. And let's check the depth of this. Now this process is going to take much longer than it would normally, because normally you just go. you just eyeball this stuff and just rip through it. That's incorrect. There's got to be a 0 before there. Oh, no, that's right. 0.6. Oh, boy. All this recording has got me all defining everything. Normally, you just go. So, we'll just keep going here. Here we go. Okay, this is a 1. Okay, let's keep going. Here we go. Okay, we're about 0.7. So I write, I'm 0.7 over in this case because I know it wants to be at 1. So I'm just assuming this is correct, even though at the end I'll probably switch this micrometer over. But I don't need that. For now, we're just going to run these pieces through, see the result. And actually, this is a 3, so I want to mark that 3 on the front here. Okay. Here we go. How are we doing? Oh, yeah, look at this. Okay. So this is a little bit of 7 again. We're getting pretty consistent on those. That's good. So we start lining those up. Here we have CYZ. Oh boy. I forgot the marker was off. Whoopsie daisy. Okay. Here we go. I think I'll put the marker cap on so I don't make that mistake again. Ay. Okay. And we'll clean this stuff off. Okay. We're doing fine. Now this one's about a 0.3 here. So I'm going to put that one a little closer down there. I'll zoom you in so you can see all the measurements. Oh, man, I really did it now. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. The things I'll do for the YouTube. Okay, let's get a D plus on. I get a D plus on that read from before on that one. Ay. Okay, here we go. Oh, this one may get kicked out by the machine. It's a little bit bent. Ooh, we made it. Oh, whew. Okay, yeah, that's definitely a D plus. Now, this piece of cane was pretty wonky. Oh my goodness. So finally, this one's way thinner. Remember before I said there's quite a bit of variance in what's going to happen. This piece of cane's all over the place. We'll call this well, I guess I'll call it minus 0.95, just so I can have relation to how thin it is comparatively to 1. But I'll place that one at the thinnest point. And the idea is later what we're going to do is we'll go back in and adjust the gouger so that we can get 0.6 or 0.59 on all of these. Now that's going to be relatively different for each person because how your micrometer is set up, how your machine is gouging, whether you're gouging dry, whether you're gouging wet, the humidity, the altitude, all of those things will play a role in what you're actually going to be doing. So we got a 0.5. So good thing we're not doing a ton of cane. You'd be here all day with me, but I guess maybe you won't mind that so much. We'll find out if you're still listening. All right, here we go. So this one had no markings. We'll just roll it through. 5.6, 0.7. Doing pretty fine. Still got marker on my hand. Yep, that's check. Okay. So there's nothing too exciting about this, but I will say if you do something wrong along the process, what you result in is a bad read and a very sad performance. So it's really important that you're able to be in control of every step, because if you aren't, the outcome could be completely disastrous. And if all of that work came down to, a few seconds of not being focused or lack of care, it'd be non-desirable. Okay, so we get 0.1. I think I messed up my markings over there. Oh boy. Don't comment about that one. I see what I'm doing wrong. Ay. Here we go. 0.01 on that one. There we go. Oh, I keep on trying to do things like I normally do, and when you do each step on a video, boy, oh boy, it kind of throws a monkey wrench in things. Okay, 0.5. But we'll keep persevering here. Here we go. Whew. Oh, okay. Let's see if you're seeing everything. Oh, yeah, it looks okay. I hope you have a snack or something good. I could use a snack. Oh, yeah. It's about an 8 on that one. We haven't had an 8 for a while. Let's go with 8. Oh, just about there. Okay. If you're wondering why the camera is moving, it's because you are right next to me. This is my shoulder, so you're right in there. Okay. Let me make a little more room. I think I'm losing numbers left and right here. Numbers and letters are disappearing from my cane, but it's okay. There's always next time. Okay. About 0.6. That's smart. I told you this cane is sharp. I got a little tiny sliver and it just got me right in the thumb. Aye. About 0.9. This one. This one's a D minus. Oh boy. Okay. Oh, we lost that one. That one's about to smash itself. So I'm going to be real gentle. Let's see here. I think it. Yeah, you can see the blade on this one, it tried to chew it up. So I'm going to switch sides on this one. I think I just got a little bit too much stuff inside there, so it was getting a little bound up. Let me clean it up a little. I got this cool little brush here. Very fancy, high-tech stuff here, you know. Very fancy here. Nothing but the best. Okay, there we go. It's better. Did we get the right side here? Yep, so I'm going to use the clean side here. Got that down. There we go, okay. Disaster averted. About 7. Whew. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I got a letter on this one. I better keep my letter on there. So let's get a C on here. Okay, 0.8. Ooh-wee. Look at that cane lineup, huh? My student's going to be making all kinds of reads. All right. I'm keeping that bed clean in there. Sorry, I keep knocking into you there. So we're almost there. We got 2, 4, 5 pieces. Well, I guess 5.5. The little teeny tiny piece. We'll put that through there just for giggles and see what happens here. So it gouged just fine, but yeah, there's not much to that one. So that's a. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Well, it's the right depth, but it ain't gonna go very far. But for fun, we'll keep going with that one. Oh, here's an A. Yeah, marking that one in the back was a good idea. Okay. And let's see, 4 more. Hang in there with me, we're almost there. I know the burning excitement of gouging cane. Ooh, ah, E, O. Now you know why some people pay other people to do this instead of doing it themselves. And that's part of my students' project. It is measuring the efficiency and time management of reed making, trying to not only know the steps of the process, but try to look at other people's process of making reeds and try to accumulate data in more of a process management or business sense to try to make a, as best as possible, objective outlook on reed making and the steps within it. So it's one of the things I really like to work with my students on, is tell them I'll teach you a wide array of ways to do things, and I have the way that works best for me. But in the end, I want you to be able to understand the best way for you and how to understand all the ways so we can respect everybody equally and be able to do what's effective for the circumstance. So here's our final one. Oh, that was an A. That's pretty good. Let's hopefully end up on a high note here. Okay. All right. Very good. If you wondered, did that Sharpie go away? No, it did not. It's still there. So even though this micrometer is not really at 0, I can kind of gauge what's happening. So for now, I'm going to kind of put this over at about 0.3. I'm going to move that dial over. It doesn't matter if this is accurately presenting information. What's really important is for me to understand the data it's presenting to me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it down a little closer to my end goal. I'm going to put it down to about 75 here on the micrometer face. And what I'm going to do is run these pieces of cane through the machine in the order that I had. Now, if you look over here, you'll start to see all the numbers from negatives to 0.3, 0.7, 0.1, from thinner to thicker. And that's so I can end up, and I'm shooting for these, I'm going to shoot between 0.59 and 0.58. It's a little thinner than normally some would consider 0.6 to be just right. And for this cane, for this setup, and for this micrometer, which I think measures things a little bit on the thicker side because of the little nib or the billet at the end of this thing, I'm going to shoot for a little thinner. And the student making these reeds, I think they'll have a higher success rate with their reed making if they have just a slightly thinner cane. So, 0.57 to 0.59, I'll be happy with. So the first thing I'm going to do is run these through here. And what's going to be fascinating, we're going to see if we're actually taking enough cane to take that pencil mark off. So we'll, 0.25 or so millimeter change actually take that off. If you look here, we got that top edge, but we didn't, we got the top edge, but we didn't quite get it all off. And it may just have been how it processed through. And here we have it at 0.79, and here we have 0.75. So, I'm going to mark that down for now and just keep that in mind. Now let's keep going and see what happens here if that 0.79 continues to be reflected in the rest of the piece of the cane. Aha! So this one's thinner now, 0.78. So I'm just going to leave those. I feel pretty good about those being pretty close. So I'm going to leave them in the same spot. Let's see how we're doing here. So I'll go a little quicker since we've already gone through this process. Otherwise you'll be falling asleep on me, which I guess isn't the worst thing in the world. Go to sleep, make some reeds. Your dreams will filled with beautiful oboe. So these are all pretty good now. These are starting to lock in here. And I'm making sure these are centered. And you can see my micrometer's just a touch bit off. Okay, now this one's even thinner here, but because I'm not going for the world's finest read, for the world's finest performance, I'm not going to spend all day on this. Let's start rolling through here and making sure we're making progress. We're at 0.75. That's a little thinner. That's kind of interesting. So let's just keep going. This will all be right in the ballpark when we get to the end. And normally this is something I don't even mark down on the cane. I just place them in order just from my memory and just kind of line them up. Oh boy, yeah, those are getting much thinner comparatively, so I'm going to order those a little differently. And you'll see the process in a little bit, which is as in the final pass, we're going to slowly take more and more cane off so that the thicker pieces are gouged the same as the thinner pieces, and we get the same results. That's the goal, at least. So I'm going to put the thinner, oh, you can't see that. Over here, oh, sorry. Over here, I'm going to put the thinner pieces here and the thicker pieces here. The reasoning is I'll put these thinner pieces in and make sure I get it at 0.6 when we get there. And then as I go, I'll increase the depth of the gouger to make sure that I take off enough cane to get the final pieces to be as thin as the starting pieces. So that one's about 78 in there. And again, this whole time, you got to be really careful not to cut yourself, because each of these pieces of cane is like a little bamboo razor knife. These things are sharp. So that one's getting a little thicker, as one would expect. And you can see these pieces are still thick, but they're nowhere near as thick as they were before when, you know, they were the first pieces we took off. They were much heavier amount of cane. Oop, I already put that one through. I know, very thrilling, but hang in there with me. We're almost done here. Okay. I guess the important part is for you just to kind of hang out and see what the heck's actually going on here. There's no fireworks that I've seen yet, so I guess it's not. Maybe these are the fireworks. They're not very good fireworks, but that's okay. They're very exciting to somebody, I guess. You know. Ooh. Oh, that. Yep. Now we're really starting to get much thicker. 0.8. Yep, definitely getting thicker now. So hopefully, yep, you can see everything good. Now all the fine work is being taken care of by the gouging machine itself. And I should even mention, you know, the fineness of that inside is the whole point behind the gouger. The reason one could argue for the specialness of the tool is to create an extraordinarily fine and hopefully smooth inside of the cane. And the reason is when you're playing on that reed, the inside of this piece of cane, you know, you're going to fold this over. Let's see if I have a piece of, here we go. You're going to fold this piece of cane over like this. You're going to shape it and tie it to a piece of string and cut it open. And so, before I drop this, oh, nope, I definitely dropped it. Excuse me. So whatever is on the inside of this cane is going to be on the inside of your reed, and you're never really going to be able to scrape that again unless you were to, I don't know, thread some sandpaper, which I've never thought of until this very moment, but hey, why not? Somebody can do that. But it would also, even if you were to be so creative as to use sandpaper, you wouldn't have the consistency, you wouldn't have the evenness, you wouldn't have that pure application of that blade. So it's one of those really important steps to making reeds. And if you have a dull knife or a dull gouger blade, you're going to have some dull reeds, and that is not a positive thing. Or I should say bad. Non-vibrant in the worst way. Okay. So we're almost to the final pass, and I mean this is actually quite quick when you think a normal gouger. Oop, well, it's one that doesn't fall. Oh, excuse me. I just lost my handle. I guess I literally, get ready for a bad joke, I literally lost my handle on the gouging process. But normally, the gougers have a blade that shifts back and forth and gouges off a single piece of cane. Whereas this one, the blade is fixed, and you place the cane against the blade and kick it out. So there's a lot to be said about that for another day as we finally finish this last piece. And we have one more round of gouging to do. Okay, so you say, oh, we must be done. No, not quite. So the final stage here, I'm going to try to get these into 0.6. And so I've unlevered the latch here, which holds down the blade. And I'm going to start a little thicker and see if I can get this first thinnest piece of cane on the micrometer here to be about 0.6 or 0.59. So let's see. And this is going to be pretty thin. This is, much thinner than paper, I would assume. So let's see how we're doing here. Okay. Now my eyes start perking up here. We're at 64, which is much too thick. This piece of cane is pretty soft feeling, but I'm going to keep lowering this down. If I wanted to spend all the time in the world, I could get this thing to look just right, but I'm more interested in the results. I'm not too worried if my little dial is just cranking in. I've got the data I need. And the next, we're taking off now just the tiniest amount of cane. So now we're getting closer. And of course, as you keep going thinner, it's going to be harder and harder to actually take off the exact amount you want, but this will be my kind of test piece just to see if I can get it in the zone here. Let's go down just a little bit. I'd rather have this piece be a little thinner and kick up the other parts. I don't even think anything came off of that one. We may be getting diminishing returns. Let me try another piece and see if we can get it in place here. There we go. And you can hear even the sound of the cane coming off is getting different as the thinness of the piece is coming off. Okay, so that still is a little thick. That's at 61. That's closer. Let's go a little bit shorter here. Or thinner. It's okay. Oh, okay. Hey. So we're right in there at 60. And right around 60, 59 towards the center. That's not so bad. I'm gonna leave that one well enough for alone for now. I'm gonna mark it on there. And if the big marking I normally like to mark, if you saw my last video, is I'll put the diameter of the cane over here. So you'd see a 10, a 10.5, 11. That's important for me to understand the opening of the reed as it relates to the diameter of the cane. The understanding being if you have a smaller diameter of cane, 10, the rigidity of the outer edge of the cane and the curvature will mean that your oboe reed, so let me actually get a tube, I can show this to you. So if your tube cane is smaller, that means when you tie your reed, that reed will have a tighter arc and therefore be more open. But if you have a very, very big piece of cane and you cut a subsection out and you put your reed there, the reed won't have as much structure, and so it'll collapse more and it'll be wider, and so it'll be more closed. So you would normally think a larger diameter of cane would mean a larger opening of the reed, but one can understand how the smaller diameter would mean a tighter diameter and therefore a tighter curve, and that would mean the oboe reed would be more open even though it's a smaller diameter cane. It's kind of neat how that works. But let's keep going here. Whew, how are we doing? Oh my goodness. Well, this isn't so bad. Normally when you just do this by yourself without a video camera and the YouTubes, you know, you just sit here for a couple hours doing this stuff and you don't think about it. But we're on the final stage here of this. And that'll be the end of the process, because I'm going to shape a few pieces for the student, but they're going to learn shaping for themselves. So I'll give them the shaper tip and all that stuff. They're going to dive right in. And I'm just doing this step to expedite the process, because I want them to focus on other things than just gouging for right now. We'll leave that one at 0.6 for now. Let's keep going. And there's a lot of measurements you can take. There's a lot of this processing that is worthy of discussion. But for now, I think I've told you so much about this stuff that I'll let you guys ask questions in the comment feed, or if you're wondering about something, you can go ahead and ask. But it's just fun to have you along on the journey here. Now you're seeing some of these are a little thinner, and I actually kind of like on this setup for what it means to me. You know, this isn't scientifically tested. You know, this isn't $1 million micrometer. So everything's not exactly accurate for everybody to be the same. But when I measure 0.58 or 0.59 on this little micrometer, it's normally just right for what I want for my reads. And this one's right in there, 0.6, 0.59. And now I don't have to order them, because that's going to go off to the student, and they're going to be able to see, well, that's how thick that piece of cane is. So if they're feeling like they want a little bit more rigidity in the read or the vibration, they can use that 0.6 piece. If they're feeling they want a little bit less resistance, a little more easily collapsible read in certain circumstances, that's very positive, they can control that. Now, of course, I'm getting a little bit of stuff here, so let's clean this up a little bit. These are high-tech cleaning method again, for very, you know, NASA scientists designed very powerful cleaning tools. Let's see, let's clean up a little bit. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. And now, since we've done all that arrangement work, essentially we're just going to keep looking to see, when do our numbers start really changing on this machine. And as soon as I see them changing a little bit, I'll increase, or I'll draw down the blade so it takes more off. And when it takes more off, it makes the cane a little thinner. And the funny thing is, for those of you who don't make reads normally, you see a number like this being written, and you say, oh, that's nice. But to me, I start thinking about how the reed plays, how it vibrates, what it's doing, how it would function in the ensemble, you know, how long it takes to make the reed, the lasting impact of that reed, how a student might use that. So all those things just kind of rattle through my head through those experiences, because you can see things and then understand how they're going to sound. And so that's kind of a cool thing. But the hope is that you get more and more control over each step of the process, and the more insight you have, the more powerful your control is over those variables. So it's pretty exciting. So it's better to start as soon as possible. And so that one was at 5.59, and I think I want it just a little thinner. I'm not looking for the thickest pieces of cane. This student's just starting out with reeds, and I don't necessarily want them to have, this is probably just more what I want. And you may say, well, why would you get it that thin? And for me, it's a way of letting the ease of vibration happen faster and sooner. And I found when I make a big dog reed for a young student, it's just not what they're looking for. So I try to ease up the vibration, thin up the cane. Not only does it make the reed sound faster and easier to scrape, but more important, the type of vibration it makes is oftentimes more pleasant for the student. And so I go with what works for them. All right, well, this is going pretty well. You can see this is a little easier than before, where we had to take all those steps and write everything out and describe everything and study what's going on. But now we can just kind of run it through the machine and make sure nothing goes off off its rocker here. Here's our humorous piece of cane. Ha ha ha, ho ho ho, because that's not going to make a reed. That's definitely a no-no. That's a no-no reed. That's just not going to happen. We want to keep cleaning that out so we don't get reeds bunched up, reed cane bunched up in the blade there. Okay, 0.5. So we're getting a little thick there again on the gouge. So if you can believe it, I'm going to lower it down there a little bit. I know, crazy. Oh boy, that was crazy. Oh no. Where are we at? About 57. That's not so bad. Okay. So now those thicker pieces aren't seeming so thick anymore. And this one's one of those curved. That's a weird one. Okay. 0.58. All right. We're just about rounding third base here. We're in the home stretch. 0.58 again, that's not too bad. See if these change as we go here. Oh boy, that didn't, well, so normally reeds are supposed to come out looking like this. The cane, but you can see this one, it didn't quite make it. We've been a pretty good run, but and oh, this was an A. Oh, the river of tears flows now. So when this one went through, it seems like there was too much pressure on it, and when you have too much pressure, it snaps. Kind of, you know, think of like an egg. An egg is so strong because of its geometry, but when you put too much pressure on those outer edges, it just splits through. It could have been a natural defect within the cane. You can even see over here the splitting kind of, oh, sorry, you can't see that. You can see the splitting over in the center here, that's just, you know, and I guess I haven't done this. You can see this cane is so fragile and thin. There's almost nothing to this stuff, and yet this is what we make all that sound out of. It's just a little piece of cane, you know, that grows. It's just a long, it looks like a big old piece of grass. It's just, you know, unbelievable. So anyway, that's, I bet you weren't expecting that. There's your fireworks for you. So let's make sure our machine's clean so it doesn't break any more cane, because cane's not cheap. If you were to buy a piece of cane from a store, it's normally between maybe $3.50 American for a piece of gouge shaped cane. This is unshaped, but it, you know, it doesn't take much to do those things. But I guess if you were to buy unshaped cane, maybe it's $2.10, something like that. I'd have to check the figures. I don't buy cane like that anymore, just because I've got the tools and I do all this stuff with it. But as you can see, it takes time. Your reeds don't make themselves when you have a big old bag of cane. And actually, just to keep things interesting, right before we finish, I'll show you a big old bag of cane so you can see kind of a pound of cane and what that even looks like. Because oftentimes people will sell or buy cane based on the kilo or pound, and it can be quite pricey. But when you think of how light, you know, if each of these was $2 or $3 a piece, think of how think of the transformative value of this processing, but also the years it took to grow that cane, to dry it. You know, it just doesn't happen overnight. There's a reason this cane isn't green anymore, and that's because they dried it for years to be able to get it to be at this state. Let's see, where's this piece? Oh, that was ungouged. Well, whew, we did it. That hand of cane has now been reduced down to a much smaller hand of cane, but these can all very much be oboe reeds. They're just waiting there. That'd be a good screenshot. How about that, huh? Oh, man. Holy cow. Let's see here. Oh, beautiful. Oh, don't look at the Sharpie on my hands. So before you go here, and we finish up the video, I'm going to go grab, don't go nowhere. I'm going to go grab a big old bag of cane here. Let's see here. What do I got? So this is a pound of cane. Oh boy, you're really zoomed in here. Let's zoom you out. So here is a full pound of cane. I don't have very small hands, so it's kind of hard to gauge that. But this is what you'd buy if you were going for a full pound, and kilos obviously much smaller than that. But kilograms of cane if you're going to be measuring down. But each of these tubes could, if you're, extraordinarily lucky, be 3 reeds. Sometimes people get a handful of reeds out of a full pound. They may pick 10 pieces out of this entire bag that may cost $100, $200, $300 depending on the rate or price of cane. But we end up, when we're gouging, we go from tube cane, we split it from the tube cane into pieces. Those pieces are then pre-gouged and guillotined, and then we gouge them into their thinner parts. And in the next video, let's see here, I'm going to take these pieces of cane, I am going to score them, fold them over, and then shave down the sides of it, which we call shaping. We're going to shape the sides. And then you tie it on a tube, and bingo, you get a reed. And this is called a reed blank. There's no scraping on it. We're going to scrape the material off there, and let's see, I got a bunch of reeds here. Let's see. This is just a randomly scraped reed. There's nothing special about it. But, so we're going to take our reed knives. I don't know, I just disappeared that piece of, here we go. We're going to take our reed knives and scrape the piece of cane until it's even thinner, and we're going to open it so they can actually vibrate together. And then you got a reed. So we'll go through that process. But I think that's more than enough for one day. You didn't have to take notes because you're just hanging out. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed some reed making with me, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. If you liked your video, if you like seeing a bunch of Sharpie all over my hands, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. I'm going to keep bringing you some videos so you can see what we're doing here, and sometimes it'll be the same, sometimes it'll be different. And go ahead and ask any questions you have, or something you'd like to see. You know, all the reed knives I have here, all the tools, we've got sharpening things, we got all kinds of things we can talk about. But I'm just going to keep you informed of what's going on. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.